Jacob last week was given a second chance, and there was a revival in the heart of Jacob. He was renewed in spirit after the huge fall on his face with Shechem and his daughter Dinah. Remember, but the Lord restored him all the way, and he returned to the land promised to Father Abraham. He's back in the land of promise. But then Jacob shows great favoritism toward his son, Joseph. That Israel loved Joseph more than any of his sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. The coat that Jacob gave Joseph signified his choice as the future heir of the firstborn birthright. That, of course, angered all of his brothers, and all his brothers hated Joseph, right? Immensely. Among these brothers was one brother to note. His name is Judah. Okay? Judah. It was Judah himself who came up with the plan to sell Joseph into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. Who came up with that idea? Judah did. Judah himself. Verse 26 says, Then Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers listened to him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. You guys remember this story? Yes. He was a part of the deception of conniving his dad that Joseph was dead. Now, look at verse 34. It says, Jacob, when he heard the news, tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, No, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him to Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. This is the backdrop for our text. It's important to note because it tells us why it is that Judah is in the state that he is. This is the backdrop of what we know. And the chapter then, the Bible that is a spotlight on all of Jacob's sons and family, then narrows down to follow one son, Judah, and gives an entire chapter to what's going on with Judah, right? Chapter 38. So look at chapter 38. It happened at that time. What time? What just happened? They sold him into slavery, and how's Jacob doing? Not well, right? Jacob's not doing good. It happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. Hira ends up being Judah's BFF. Okay, his best friend forever. There, Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name There's so many jokes for that. Yeah, you guys are doing them. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan, the barbarian. Isn't Conan? Okay, yeah, see, I know these jokes. Verse 5, yet again she bore a son, and she called him Shelah, and that is unfortunate, and there's no joke for that. It's just sad. Judah was in Chezib when she bore him. Now what's going on? Judah, perhaps not wanting to sit around at home in his guilt and in his shame for selling his brother into slavery, nor wanting to watch his father grieve to the point of wanting to die. I mean, how happy is this home? Not wanting to stick around for all of that, he leaves. Judah leaves the entire family. You have to know, the whole family is together. All 11 sons are together with Jacob. But Judah says, peace out. And he leaves. Where does he go? Into Canaanite territory, right? He leaves. It says that Judah went down from his brothers. That's not an accident. He literally detached from the family and went down to his brothers, and he takes a Canaanite wife. Instead of being separate from the world and marked as sanctified, Judah was wholly assimilated into the Canaanite culture. Hook, line, sinker. He was all in. His wife, his friends, his actions, everything that's going to come along in this chapter all came from very pagan influence, from the people that Judah decided he's the prodigal son right now. He ran from home. Okay? So he's in Canaanite land, and everything that happens is because of his choice to flee his family. Look at verse 6. Judah took a wife for thank you. His firstborn. Keep practicing. That's great. And her name was Tamar. Okay? So Judah took a Canaanite wife and starts looking around for wives for his sons, and that's how Tamar comes on the scene, right? So his firstborn son and Tamar, they got married. Look at verse 7. But Judah's firstborn, how important is that? Very important. We should know this. Was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. The end. We don't know what he did or what made his wickedness worse than anybody else's wickedness. It doesn't really matter. The Lord is sovereign and he is judge, and Er's dead. Okay? The Lord struck him dead. That's literally what we know. That's all we know. So then Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. Now, what's happening here? This is really important because it looks super weird. This is a biblical thing, and you should know this because this happens several times through the word. So if you don't know this, you could be lost through the Old Testament. This is a practice actually from Mesopotamian culture. It's an old practice that predates the law of Moses, because we're sitting in what book? And when does the law come? Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, right? Moses isn't even born yet. There's no Mosaic law. This predates the law. It's something that cultures were already doing. But the Lord takes time to explain how it works. And in Deuteronomy chapter 25, which you should write down if you guys didn't look it up, explains it to us. And there it is called the Levirate marriage law. Does that ring a bell? Okay, that's what the Lord named it for Israel's behalf, but know that it was already happening before the law happened, right? So Deuteronomy chapter 25, I'm going to summarize it for you, but you will find it in verse 5 through 10, okay? And this is basically what it is. If a man dies without a son, okay? If a man dies without a son, his brother must marry the widow. And their firstborn son would carry the name of the deceased son ahead of them. Essentially, the firstborn birthrights, because the son died without an heir, the next son would marry the widow, and their first son becomes first in line. He usurps over the other sons. That's how it worked. Okay? Now, this is the Lord speaking. I took this all out of Deuteronomy, so you guys can read this all for yourself. If the brother, let's say there's Bob and Bill, okay? I just need some help. Bob, unfortunately, dies. He's married, but they didn't have any kids, okay? Bob and man, there's a lot of names in here. Who's not a name? Blah. Mildred. Bob and Mildred. Bob and Mildred got married. Good for them. They did not have kids. Bob dies. Okay? Now, Bill's job is to marry the widow, Mildred, and their firstborn son then becomes Bob's heir. Firstborn. If the brother refuses for any reason, one reason could be he can't because he's already married, right? That could be a reason. Or he doesn't want to. Okay, if he refuses to, the widow then can appeal to the elders. Okay, and she gets to throw down. Where would she do that at? What part of the city? At the gate. You guys are good, right? In the gate. If he still declines after elder intervention, when she takes him to the schoolhouse and he still declines, she publicly removes his sandal and spits in his face in the middle of everybody at the city gate, and his family then is known as the house of the unsandaled. This is in the law, dude. Read it. The Bible is awesome. This law protected the widows and preserved family lineage. That's what it was for. You can read it again, Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 10. This is exactly what happened with Ruth and Boaz. If you know their story, this should ring a bell. The nearest kinsman said, "No way, I don't want her." For whatever reason, and remember, Boaz was a little sneaky about it because he's like, "Hey, bud." His name's Bud. "Hey, bud." And Boaz, all the B's. See, I didn't even try. "Hey, bud. Ruth needs a kinsman. You're the nearest kinsman. Do you want to redeem Ruth?" Now, at first, all that Boaz said to him was, "She's got a lot of land." Because of Elimelech and the boys that had died, all of the family land would go to the one that's going to rear the next kid, right? He says, "Oh, sure, I'd love land." But when Boaz is like, "The land comes with the chick." Remember this? And they're like, "Oh, no way. I'm not marrying a Moabite." Remember? And so what happened? He took off his sandal, and this all happened in the city gate, right? And you're like, what is going on? It's all symbolic of the Levirate marriage. Officially, legally, the kinsman, the nearest kinsman, then got transferred to Boaz, who was next in line, and they got married. Okay, so turn to Ruth chapter 4. We're going to read a little bit of this. Because now that you know about the Levirate marriage, this ending paragraph is actually a little confusing unless if you know the law. So look at Ruth chapter 4, verse 13. It says, "So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son." So who has a kid? Through Boaz, right? Look at what, remember the village women? Man, we haven't done this in so long. We made a joke out of the village women because they like had cameo appearances, kind of like Beauty and the Beast village women. They're like, "Ah," like that. Here comes the village women. They say to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left who are they talking to? Naomi, this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. He being the son, the baby. Okay? For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. You guys see this? And the woman of the neighborhood came back with another musical number and gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to who? You guys see it? To Naomi. They named him Obed, the father of Jesse, the father of David. What is going on here? Why are the women all excited for Naomi? And why does Naomi all of a sudden have a baby? Because Ruth and Boaz's firstborn son goes back to Naomi to redeem her lineage. It's the Levirate marriage. Okay, that's what's going on. This is cool stuff. Okay, so this protects then Naomi. Now she's not vulnerable. She's not a widow without an heir. And a woman, she is like toast in the culture, right? But Boaz swept in and redeemed not only Ruth, but also Naomi. Okay, that's what's going on here. The sandal and everything. How cool is that? Okay, so that's Ruth. This is a great story for basically the Levirate marriage and the law of the kinsman redeemer being played out in story form, Ruth and Boaz. If you haven't read it lately, it takes about 15 minutes, and it's really cool. Okay, back to our text in Genesis chapter 38. Look at verse 9. So Judah tells Onan, you're up, buddy. Can't be buddy, we already used that. Onan, you need to marry Tamar to give an heir to to carry the firstborn, right? The Levirate marriage. You guys got that? Okay, look at what happens in verse 9. But Onan knew that the offspring would what? Not be his. He's like, no way. He probably hated his brother. His brother got struck down by God, okay? He probably wasn't a very happy person to be around. And the brother's like, nah, I'm not doing it. He refuses to do it. So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground so as to not give offspring to his brother. That's what's going on. He doesn't want his brother to have an heir. If his brother doesn't have an heir, who gets it? Onan the barbarian. Right? Are you guys following this? This is Bible stuff. You just got to go with it. Okay, you guys got all that? Verse 10. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, so he died too. Yes. Then, so Tamar married son 1, he dies. Son 2, he's just as bad, right? He dies. Now Tamar is a widow twice over in like a week. I don't know how long, okay? So then it says in verse 11, Judah says to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, now track with me, remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up. For he feared that he would die like his brothers. Judah's like, oh, no. You take your whatever it is back home. You just go home to dad. We'll wait for Shelah to grow up. Judah's like, I don't want to lose a third son. Okay, you guys see this? And basically, it's his sons that were awful. It's not Tamar's fault that God keeps striking his sons dead. Do you see the consequence of Judah leaving home? Okay, this is all because he ran away from the land he was supposed to be in, right? He's in Canaanite land. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house. She goes home. Now, verse 12, in the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. So now Judah is a widower, right? When Judah was comforted, or literally his time of mourning was over, right? He went up to Timnah to the sheep shearers, he and his BFF, Hira, the Adulamite, right? The BFF. And when Tamar was told, hey, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear the sheep, she took off her widow's garments, which she would have had to wear by law until her circumstances changed, covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, jumps out of her dad's bedroom window or something. She gets away from home, right? Borrows some clothes from someone, jumps out the window, and she sat at the entrance of Enem or something, which is on the road to Timnah. So she intercepts the main highway from where they were to Timnah, hoping to catch Judah on the way. Okay? You guys got this? Okay. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. Judah had no intention of giving Shelah to Tamar. This was a death sentence for Tamar. She couldn't marry someone else. She would have no heir, no inheritance, no family. She belonged to Judah. And Judah was not following the law. Right? Judah's like, forget it. And basically left her to rot at her father's house for I don't know how long. We don't know how old Shelah was when she was sent there, how old he is now. We have no idea. All we know is he was too young to get married, and now he's not. And still Tamar is at home, waiting. And she can see the handwriting on the wall, right? This is a messed up family. Okay. So another still continuing to be a messed up family. Same, just the grandson. That's it. That's all. Okay. All right. So verse 15. When Judah saw her, remember, what is she wearing? She's all gussied up in a veil, right? Okay. Over her face, he thought she was a prostitute. Okay, because her face was covered. So he turned to her on the roadside and said, hey, hey, I don't even want to read this. You know what I'm saying? It's just hey, that's it. Hey, you guys got the rest, right? Okay, good. He did not know that she was his daughter-in-law, right? Of course he didn't. Now, question, Bible students, you got to think about this story because, again, it's one of those stories that are weird, just like the Dinah story, right? It's devastating and it's weird and it's like, what is going on? But has a very deep meaning to it. There's a lot going on. So keep your thoughts up higher than the actual, just like Dinah, okay? Get your head out. Never mind. Okay. So he didn't know that she was their daughter. Judah thought she was what? A prostitute. Hold on to that. That is the point. Okay? Just hold on to that. She said, what will you give me? He said, well, I'll send you a goat. Oh. Wow. She must have been like, oh. Oh man, I can't even imagine being her. Sometimes it's not good to go boots on the ground with everybody. I was just like reeling in her this week. Right? Okay, poor thing. Yeah, I don't know. She said, Okay, if you give me a pledge until you send it, give me some sort of guarantee that you're going to come back with my goat. And he said, what pledge shall I give you? Now this is important. She said, I want your signet, and I want your cord, and I want your staff. You see that? So he gave them to her. He gave them to her. You guys. And he went into her and she conceived. Then she arose and went away and took off her veil and put back on her garments of widowhood, right? She sneaks right back through her dad's door, puts her black stuff back on, and just is like, I did it. Okay, now what is happening? Okay, let's break this down a little bit. What is happening? First, this whole encounter tells us a lot about Judah. Okay? This tells us a lot about Judah. Temple prostitution was part of pagan religious practices. It was normal. It was what you do. Almost all the pagan gods required some sort of sexual immorality. It's just what happens. Judah is in it. Okay? The text doesn't indicate to us that Judah was headed to the temple. He was headed to shear sheep, right? Okay. Was he hoping, which is the God that they worshiped, this God where they are is the goddess of fertility. And so the temple prostitution is the way that you worshiped the God for fertility, for your flocks, for your harvest, for your kids, right? Anything that you would want to be fruitful and multiply, you would worship the God in this way. Was he hoping for a little extra good luck token on his sheep? I have no idea. It doesn't tell us, right? The greater point is the same point of the entire Bible since page 1. The seed. This is the point. It's been the point every week. Has anyone noticed that? Okay. How careless is Judah in this? He is the Zerah. The Zerah, the seed. He is the tribe of Judah. Does that ring a bell? He is the one that is the firstborn, who the Messiah will come from. How careless is he with his seed? I mean, like literally careless. Yeah. Yet same as his son, he was flippant, just like his sons, right? Question, what if this was not Tamar? What if this was actually just your run-of-the-mill temple prostitute? Who he thought it was? Just some hired girl for a good time? What if it was exactly what he thought he was buying? And she gets pregnant. What happens to the seed? You see the enemy in this? You guys, the enemy thwarting plans for the Messiah. It's been the same game plan from the beginning. No matter what story we're in, it's the same. Right? It's all about Jesus. Even this chapter, it's about Jesus. Don't lose that. Judah promises Tamar a young goat as payment, believing that she is a temple prostitute. Now, this is the wild part. As collateral, as a guarantee that he will come back with the goat, he gives Tamar several things. His signet ring, right? His cord and his staff. These are not just trinkets, like he's emptied his pockets and handed her stuff. No. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, the signet ring symbolized a person's identity and his status and his family lineage. It often even bore unique marks on it, like a personal signature. Remember the wax rings? Same thing. You could sign deeds and letters with your signet ring. It is the same. What he did to what he thought was a prostitute was the same as handing over your driver's license and your passport and your credit card and all your banking information. What you got? And he handed her everything. Again, imagine this just being a girl, just somebody. He's lucky it was Tamar, you guys. This is grace, is what this is. In a twisted, weird way, this is God's hand of protection. Make no mistake. Judah was lost. And he handed literally the kingdom of heaven and hell over to a prostitute. It would have been it. The seed would have been lost. Don't lose that. This is a huge deal because it's all about Jesus. Okay? So look at verse, where did we leave off? 24. No, 20. Okay, Judah sent the goat. Well, that's good. At least he was going to do that. By his BFF Hira, right? To take back the pledge from the woman's hand. He wanted his stuff back, sent the goat, get my stuff back. He didn't find her. He asked the men of the place, where's the cult prostitute who sits here? They said, nada. There is no cult prostitute that sits here. This isn't where they work. They don't work here. This is a random highway. Maybe he's nowhere near the temple. I have no idea. But they said, you're on the wrong road. It's not here. There's no cult prostitute here. Judah replied, oh, well. You see that? That's a paraphrase. Did you guys see this? Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this goat, but you couldn't find her. Ha ha ha. That's fine. Just let her have it. If we bring it up, people will laugh at us. We don't want people to laugh at us. So, we tried the goat. I guess we get to go back to. Ha ha. That is what he's saying. It's wild. You guys, he has no concern. Verse 24. 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality. Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. Isn't it amazing how your sin looks on someone else? She has been immoral. I'm sorry. And Judah's been, burn her, he says. Verse 25. As she was being brought out. Now watch this. Watch Tamar. She's been sitting quietly at her father's house for 3 months. At some point, it would dawn on her that this worked. Right? Her maiden or her nurse is now also catching on that she has no cycle. That's how they would know. But she's been quiet. She didn't go out there and say anything. She didn't flaunt his ring around. She was quiet. And even here, when Judah calls for her death, Look at what she does. As she was being brought out, literally dragged out of her father's house to be burned at the stake, she sent word to her father-in-law quietly. You guys see this? She did not scream it out in public. She sent word to her father-in-law. By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. You see her? And she said, please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff. Amazing, right? Then Judah identified them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah. He knows what he did. He knows who she was on the side of the road, but he knows what he did. Withholding Shelah was deliberate, and he was not going to do it. He had already sentenced her to death culturally, and he knew it. But she sends word and says, please, are these yours? Smart girl. Very smart. How was Tamar more righteous than Judah in this story? I think a few ways. Number one, what he admits to, that he was never going to give her Shelah, thus sentencing her to death. Doing that means there's no seed, no heir, right? She was desperate. Now, another thing in the culture is that the father-in-law is the same as the boys. It just needed to be somebody to carry an heir. What she did was wrong, okay? It wasn't the most best thing to do, but what she was doing what? Preserving Judah. She knew better than he that his lineage was on the line. Not excusing it, but that's what she's thinking, and she was right in that. Judah had no problem for this lineage to just die right where it was. And that's how he was living. Now, the thing with Judah, though, is that now he knows also that the baby is his. And that is both probably terrifying in the moment, and it would have hit him right between the eyes. Oh, an heir. He's going through a lot right now in this verse. We better get him out of it. Oh, the end of verse 25, important. He did not know her again, as in she would now be raised in his house again as a daughter-in-law, right? That's good news. I like that that's true. Verse 27, when the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. But as he drew back his hand, another, his brother, came out and said, what a breach you have made of yourself. Of yourself, whatever. Therefore, his name was Perez. Afterward, his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Sarah. The scarlet thread, the thread that's woven throughout the entire story of redemption. You can see it from cover to cover. The enemy once again attempted to destroy the seed of salvation through various means in Genesis chapter 38, as he was doing in chapter 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all the way through our story. Judah's failure to fulfill his responsibilities towards Tamar, left her in a very vulnerable position as a widow, leading her to resort in measures to secure her future and bear children. Was it right? I don't know. I'm still on the fence. We know her intentions were right? We know that much. The Lord, we know this, used Tamar. Whether it was right or wrong, the Lord's hand was in it. He moved her to care about the seed of Judah. And praise the Lord that she did. Without her faithfulness, this could have gone very wrong. If the Lord had not put Tamar in the right place at the right time, this could have gone very, very wrong. God again intervenes despite human flaw and failure. He is using the material he has at his disposal. The material he has at his disposal is Tamar and Judah, and he worked with it. That's the fact. Tamar's story is not only about personal struggle and triumph, but she is a crucial link in the chain of God's redemptive plan, ultimately leading to the birth of Jesus Christ. Her inclusion in the genealogy that we find in Matthew is stunning. Do you know that it was very rare for Jews to record women's names in genealogy? It was nearly never heard of. But Tamar's there. So is Rahab and Ruth and Bathsheba and Mary. Jesus picked his family. Jesus picked these people. From the garden on, he handpicked the people that would hang in his family tree. That includes us. We're in the family tree too. We hang there just like all the others. Failed, flawed, probably not making the right choices, but we're there nonetheless. And Jesus chose us to be his family, and that's a beautiful thing. From this chapter, Judah returns to his family. We again see him when the famine hits all of the world, and he travels to Egypt and sees Joseph face to face. He reunites with his family at some point. He goes home, and that's good news. In fact, he is mentioned speaking several times in those stories. God had chosen the seed line to flow through Judah. Man's sinfulness could not frustrate God's plans. What he ordained would be carried out. It's a story. It's one story, the Bible, of the seed of promise, and the story of redemption. I am God, unmatched, divine. I declare the end by my design. From ancient days, what's yet to come, I say, my purpose will be done. And that is a story of origin. Lord, we thank you for this story. We thank you for your family tree that hangs a name of a wretch like me, and Tamar, and Rahab, and Ruth, and Bathsheba. Lord, the people that you picked are broken vessels and clay pots, the weakest of the world. But that's what makes you glorious. And that's what makes your grace amazing. Lord, we thank you for this story. We thank you that the seed survived through Genesis 38. We thank you that the seed survived all the way to the cross. That our redemption is secure in you, Lord, that you have died and that you rose and you ascended and you are seated at the right hand and you're waiting for us, Lord, to join you. The enemy could not thwart your plans. That's true on the big scale, Lord. It's true in our lives. I pray that as we read these stories, that your sovereignty and providence would hit home, Lord, that if you can orchestrate on the mega stage all the complicated part, that you can orchestrate our day-to-day lives.